Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am joined by a wonderful panel of instructors, starting off with Dr. Marwan Al-Rayes, our Chief Learning Officer and co-founder here at Prep Doctors, Dr. Akashat Chaudhry, the Senior Instructor of our INBDE and ADAT training program, and we're also joined remotely by Dr. Choaukat, all the way from the States. He is our Senior Instructor for our University training program. Thank you everyone for joining today, and we'll get right into it. Dr. Akashat, what is the ADAT exam?
So in the initial cycle, to begin with, the exam starts from 1st of March and it is there till 31st of August. So participant, they have the ability to attempt it anytime they want. They also have the ability to reschedule the exam just in case they want to. However, there is an associated fee with it, which is nominal, 25 USD.
Okay.
Not a big fee. And then in the very first cycle, they can attempt it twice. Okay.
From March to August,
From March to August, they can attempt it twice, just in case if they're not happy with the first score, they can go ahead and improve towards improving the score in the next step. And then the third cycle, like the next cycle, the next year, they can appear once.
So it's like a total of 3.
No, it's not total of 3. Total of 3 is with no questions asked. If someone wants to apply more than 3 times, then they have to provide them either with a completed application on ADA pass system, which says that the application was submitted but did not get accepted anywhere, or the candidate has received a rejection from the university stating that your ADAT score is not appropriate or not up to the standards, or if they have a recommendation from one of the dean of the universities requesting them to improve the score and apply again.
Okay, so is it a pass or fail, or what's the scoring system?
There is no pass or fail in ADAT. It is a scaled score, and the minimum that you get is 200. The maximum that you get is 800.
800, all
Okay.
right.
Yeah, and the score is like, it is discipline based and overall score. So when we say discipline based, the ADAT exam is broken down into 3 components. One is the biomedical sciences, where you have a fixed questions of 80, like fixed 80 questions. Next is your clinical sciences, where you have again a question equating to 80. And then you have the biostat, research and epidemiology, where we get around 40 questions. So altogether 200 questions.
200 questions. So
Yes.
it sounds similar to the AFK, Dr. Marwan, right?
I know, because he mentioned
Like
two
it's 200.
two disciplines that are not heavily
covered.
focused
Yeah.
on.
So if you ask me to compare this exam with the AFK, so the clinical sciences component that we cover in AFK is pretty much enough. It's like, in fact, more than enough to what is required for the ADAT exam. However, the tricky part is where you have the biomedical sciences and the biostat and data interpretation. Like, we know even in AFK we go a bit about epidemiology and the various kind of studies that we do in public health. However, we don't touch the biostat component, the data analysis, the research, and data interpretation into that depth.
And that is required for the ADAT.
It is required
exam.
for ADAT, and most importantly, why the component has a lot of importance associated is, in your test report score, you will have individual discipline score as well. So you will have a score for biomedical sciences, clinical sciences, and a separate score for your biostats, and then you will have an overall score. So supposingly, if you apply to a university whose main school of thought is going into research, like many universities, they are more research oriented. So over there, they would be considering more importance to your biostat scores. If you're applying to a university where it is more clinically oriented, like the ideology is based more on the clinical terms, then it is like, maybe your clinical scores are holding some value out there.
So there's no formula.
There's no formula.
Yeah.
Alright, so every university will ask for or
Yes.
focus on a specific section or criteria.
Yeah.
Alright, and so the scores you said from 200 to 800, but sometimes you said if you get rejected by the university for getting a lower score, what's a good score in general?
So in past, like 2 years down the lane, a good score, a competitive score was any score above 500. However, we know when things enter the Canadian market, it gets shoots up, right? Canada is like, though it's a cold country, but it heats up the market very fast. So
Absolutely.
going by that, now with the current scenario, I would say at least 575
575
and above.
Okay, so do all universities in Canada require the ADAT, and which universities do not? I know that there's few that still
Yes,
did not.
at this point of time, currently, the current cycles, University of Toronto, McGill University and University of Saskatchewan, they are accepting the ADAT scores. We do have confirmation available on University of Alberta and Manitoba that starting next cycle they are starting with ADAT as well.
Okay.
However, the Western University, Dalhousie University and the University of British Columbia, we still don't have any updates from them.
Okay, but University of British Columbia, do they have an equivalency or an IDAP?
No, they used to have a IDAP program
Oh,
before, but now they don't. But still,
Okay.
because it's a dental university, so I took the name that they're not accepting it.
Okay, so mainly like for the access to internationally trained dentists, it's Dalhousie that don't accept
And
and
the
Western.
So
far.
roughly around 25 to 27 seats, because
Okay.
Western has a chunk of around 20.
So they're still using the AFK.
Yes, they still use AFK.
Okay.
Alright, awesome. So,
So-
tell me a little bit about prep doctors. Like, what do we offer? What's our course? What's our program like for the ADAT
So in
training?
prep doctors, we have studied this carefully, like, what are the content of the exam, what are the topics from, like which are important from based on the ideology, based on the recommendations in the practical guide that they have released for the students.
Mhm.
So then we came out with this bridging course that we have in place. So what we do is, as the name suggests, bridging course, so we basically bridge the missing elements. So if someone has taken the AFK course with us, they are pretty much trained for the entire clinical aspect that is required. And with the bridging course stepping in, we would be connecting the missing link and joining the dots together to form a proper shape. So in an easy way, I can explain that way.
So the bridging course is gonna be focusing on biostat and the biomedical sciences,
Exactly.
pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the discussion of the clinical, I know that you guys have like tests, mock tests, and exams.
Yeah,
and
so last cycle we just had a bridging course, and this cycle what we have done is, because based on the feedback from the candidates that they said that we struggled in clinical aspects, and there are certain concepts which needs to be evaluated in a little more depth. So what we have come up with is, now we have 3 clinical mocks separately. Each mock would have questions between 175 to 200, and each mock would be discussed with each question and striking out each option why it is not the right option.
Okay, so a detailed
A detailed discussion for those clinical mocks.
So I just want to point out, by the way, that because you mentioned that the ADAT, you have a window from March to August,
Yeah.
right, to write in, and you have, as you mentioned, 2 attempts the first window,
Yes.
and that's no question asked, and then the next year you get 1 more attempt without question asked.
Yes, Dr. Marwan.
And I just want to point out to people who are attending, people who took the AFK with us the last cycle, they were in the tough cycle because they were actually taking the AFK in the window. So the AFK course starts in Feb,
Yep.
and they were learning the clinical sciences along with the ADAT, and they have to write the exam within that very narrow window.
Yes.
So they were trying to capture that last period.
Mm-hmm.
But people who are in the AFK now, I believe they are actually in an advantageous stage. Because
In this aspect, I would like to point out something. So the current course that we have designed, it is based on we have kept these things in mind before designing the course. That what are AFK lecture schedules, when is the AFK mock being conducted by prep doctors. So the current bridging course, it starts in the first week of November. That's when you have pretty much the entire clinical science almost finished. Then we will begin with basic science lecture, and then we would have a clinical mock, again basic science lecture, clinical mocks, and we finish everything by 12th of December. So when the candidate has to appear for the actual mocks of AFK with prep doctors, we are not bothering them with anything in regards to ADAT. Once they finish the AFK mocks, they go for the main AFK exam. After that, we start the ADAT mocks. So you can think this way, that a candidate who's appearing with the current cycle, registering in the current cycle of ADAT batch, and is going to appear for the exam in the month of March, before going for the exam, he would have practiced the entire course with 2 mocks exclusively dedicated to ADAT pattern, 4 mocks which completely cover the clinical sciences from prep doctors, 3 clinical mocks separately. Apart from this, the ADAT we also have 9 quizzes for each subject with explanatory answers.
Very comprehensive.
So that's it's too much. It's literally too much to go through, and the candidates, they would feel that they would get to know that how much of extra information is actually provided out there, and it's very handfully crafted.
So let me just get this clear. So the course starts in November,
Yes.
and the course will end in December, the bridging course.
Yes.
But you're gonna postponed all the mock exams until after their AFK,
Yes.
so that they focus on the AFK.
Exactly, you got
And-
it right.
And then
Dr.
after AFK, they can do their mock exams and they will be ready to go to the ADAT.
Exactly.
If I ask you, what would you consider the best time to actually appear for the ADAT exam?
Oh, the best time is when you're very fresh with the AFK theory as well, because you don't have to do a special revision, you don't have to put in any extra efforts, because for your AFK you have already given your sincere attempt. So right after a week, or maybe within the next month, once you appear for AFK, you are still fresh with the clinical subjects. We are training you on the basic subjects, we are giving you the mocks. I guess you're ready to go.
So within the early phase of the
the sooner
window,
the better.
The sooner
they
the
always
better.
say it
Yes.
in life, the sooner the better.
The
So
better,
that's the
yeah.
exact same
Because I
thing.
believe information for AFK, some candidates, they keep their information in their short-term memory.
Yeah,
It's good to you too.
exactly. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because they learn a lot, and then afterwards, because actually mentioning that one of the candidates who's in the NDEC thought now about university, and that's like a whole restart
Yes.
for in their career, because they have to go again and do AFK. So that's why when people ask me, I say, okay, even though your primary focus is the direct, but make sure you have that backup when you are at the best stage.
Yes, for sure. That certainly gives you the leverage,
Yeah.
And most importantly, when you have backups in place, you don't get stressed out. If something goes wrong in any of the exam, I've got an alternative.
Alternative routes.
Yeah,
Back
an
to the
alternative,
first point
yes.
that Dr.
Yeah.
Marwan mentioned.
And so the number of universities that accept ADAT now is even more than the ones that are still with AFK.
Yes.
I heard that people were saying that all the universities will transition to ADAT. What's your thoughts on
Well,
that?
in my opinion, we would be happy to see that. However, it's completely based on the university panel, if they want to or if they don't want to. So, I would say that we need to wait and watch.
Okay. By the way, some people may look at the ADAT as a disadvantage. Now I have to study for 2 exams. But I want to highlight one thing, is that you have 3 attempts for AFK.
Yeah.
So back in the days, people were stressed out about AFK, that if you end up, God forbid, in a situation where you exhaust those 3 attempts, and it happened to few individuals, because there's a lot of people who actually jump into AFK without training, and by the time we see them here, they're in the 3rd attempt, then the door is closed.
Yes.
But now the ADAT is a totally independent exam from the AFK. So they have they have 2 attempts in the first window and then 1 more attempt. So it kind of keeps their career and the future in Canada open for them.
Yes, Dr. Marwan, I agree on that. And in fact, ADAT does have a value in the US universities as well, wherein the AFK will stand no value in US
Okay.
university. In case if
okay.
you have as what Dr. Marwan said, that in case if the candidate has the ability to go across the border and pursue their residency or pursue their higher studies out there, that again is a great route.
So it is for higher studies, not for the equivalency in the States.
Yeah, it is for the higher studies, like for specialization.
The equivalency, I know the INBDE is
that's
required.
that's for the INBDE. Yeah,
Okay.
INBDE is required for that.
And I know you also provide training
Yes,
for that.
we
but-
do provide training for it as well.
Okay. So
Awesome. So after somebody goes through the ADAT, they get their scores. I believe the next step will be an interview, maybe. They get called for an interview. Can you walk us a little bit more about that?
they have to actually, so that's what we want to mention. The first thing is I want people to get an idea, because I get a lot of ADAT questions
Okay.
in the especially this AFK course and the past AFK course. So I just want people to know that whoever is taking AFK right now, the best time to train for ADAT is in parallel, and then the best time to fine-tune their training for ADAT is after the AFK, because if they're appearing in Feb, then after AFK they can fine-tune it, and then they can appear in March or April. The nice thing about the ADAT is they can reschedule. So for
Yes.
example, if you book a date in March and you find you're not ready, you can push it. You have that flexibility, because I believe you're writing in Pearson VUE, right?
Yeah, so all the exams, you don't even have to travel anywhere. You have Pearson VUE centers across Canada. And the good thing is we, till yesterday, we had 215 centers in US and 217 centers in US and 15 centers in Canada. But yesterday only, as I was going through the detailed publications, the center of Quebec has been closed effective 23rd August. So
That's
now we
unfortunate.
do have centers in Ottawa, We have it in Toronto. We have it in Vancouver. There are centers in Calgary, in Alberta. We have centers in Saskatchewan as well.
So from your experience, did you witness any seat limitation problem with the ADAT exam?
Exactly.
As
that
compared
was-
to the
as
other?
like
No.
AFK.
So exactly. So as it goes with the Canadian equivalency process, where we see that once candidates they have cleared the AFK exam, they might not be able to register for the next ACJ cycle, but they have to wait for the coming cycle.
Mhm.
So it's a good long wait time of like around 6 to 7 months. So that's not the case with ADAT. If you don't get a center here in Canada, okay, just apply across border, go write the exam and come.
Okay.
Good thing
Okay.
seems to be we don't have the same problem with AFK because the seats are limited.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
because there's a lot of centers,
There's a
and
lot of
anybody who
centers.
can go to the States, they have a lot of flexibility
Yes,
as
a lot
well.
of flexibility.
217.
270.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
It
Yeah.
is.
All right.
And not only this, like we in Canadian equivalency, we know that the Canadian exams they make you eligible for the New Zealand license as well, and then New Zealand and Australia has a treaty, the Trans Tasmanian Treaty. So if you consider ADAT, you have ADAT centers in Australia as well. So supposingly if someone wants to appear for ADAT and like they have a Canadian citizenship or a Canadian PR, but they are present for some reasons there, they can always take that exam,
exactly.
apply to the Canadian university.
No, this is
Yeah,
very
so
good.
it's pretty flexible. So it's a flexible exam in sense of the timing. It's flexible in terms of location, and in terms of scheduling as well.
Yes.
It's
And-
also flexible in terms of preparing because our entire course for ADAT is online.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's one more thing.
It's evening, I
online.
believe also.
It's
evening. It's evening and
So
online.
even if
Yeah.
if someone is working, they can finish out the work during morning, and by evening 5:30 when
Do you have a schedule or a tentative
yes,
for the next
I do.
cycle?
We do have we have it already. And
Okay, so I believe it's on the screen.
Yes, we can see the schedule.
Yeah,
here.
so just to give people an idea, what is biomedical sciences? Biomedical sciences is basic, like when you're talking about physiology, basic physiology. So, for example, covering the endocrine system,
Yes.
respiratory system, anatomy, general anatomy. We're talking about pathology, general pathology, right? Not the.
Yeah, so
Or-
these subjects we are not going to cover all together, but based on the guidelines in the ADAT candidate handbook, they've released a handbook. So based on those topics, we have been crafting the handouts for these
Okay.
subjects.
Yeah, because these topics, they're not in AFK. They don't cover them much. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
there are two things, Dr. Marwan. First of all, these are not covered in AFK in that depth, and also when anyone is graduating from a university or a dental school, these topics are covered in the initial years,
and the
in the
science
first and the second year
pre-dental.
of the dental schooling.
Mhm.
Okay, and by the time they come to Canada, it's been like at least 4 to 5 years since they graduated. So it's like 8 to 9 years down the lane since they
Yeah.
studied this subject last.
Mhm.
So if you try to recall things you studied 8 years back, I'm sorry, but they're difficult.
It'll
like,
be
you
a
know.
little challenging.
It'll
of
be a
course,
little
to understand,
challenging.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the thing. And these subjects also are very volatile. The reason being when I say volatile is because we don't, use them on routine basis in our clinics.
Okay.
You
Wait,
don't
still we
use endocrine system on routine basis?
No, you do use, but not the physiology part, like
Yeah.
how it is affecting, what's the underlying pathophysiology of the disease. But yes, we see diabetes.
Yeah.
Yes, we know diabetes, but what are the outcome? What are the consequences? Why it is happening?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, even some topics in AFK like pharmacology, there's a big chunk that you don't even use on routine basis. So that's why people struggle with topics like that. Well, I just want to move on to Dr. Choaukat, because when we first started, we talked about ADAT,
Yes.
and thank you for the clarification. The second question I always get from people is, how do we apply to universities? What are the requirements for universities? And there is one integral part of the application process, which is the interviews that everybody who applies to university, they have to go through an interview. So they have to apply, go through an interview. Plus, some universities, I believe, they have bench exams and they have other assessment they have to conduct for candidates. So that's why the second obstacle I was mentioning is that interview and understanding what each university wants. And we have Dr. Choaukat with us. And just to give some background on Dr. Choaukat, Dr. Choaukat, when he did his AFK, by the way, he was one of 3 who scored 100.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, he scored 100 in AFK. We were very proud of that. Now he's part of the team. So That was the first cycle, and then the cycle after that, we also started to see the hundreds, but then the NDEB removed the score.
Scores, so it's a pass or a fail.
So we can say Dr. Choaukat was the torchbearer for us, like, he guided the path.
Yes.
Yeah, so and he actually graduated from University of Toronto, so he went through University of Toronto. He applied to multiple universities, got admission also in multiple universities, so he's pretty familiar with the process and with what's required. So I will hand it over to him to tell us more about what they have been planning with prep doctors for this specific part of the process.
Great, thank you for the sweet introduction. Now, funny fact is I logged into my NDEB account recently, and they removed the 100, so I'm not 100 anymore. Even I cannot see the score. So thank God I printed a copy before they removed it, just to keep it with me that I got 100. So for people to believe me. But yeah, it was a good experience. Of course, without prep doctors, I wouldn't be able to do this. The guidance and the things, and now I'm part of the team. So as Dr. Marwan mentioned, I am personally a person who likes backups. So the minute I came into the AFK, I did not have my mindset clear on which route I want. Do I have the clinical experience to proceed with the 3 exams, or do I need more clinical training or knowledge? So I went in with a mindset that, okay, so let's do every step at a time and give it my all. So AFK is needed in both routes, okay? Back in 2019, that's what I had. So AFK is needed, so let me get my best. I need a very good score in order to apply to universities, and at the same time, I need the AFK to go for the ACJ and the skills. Now, after the AFK, I went to the ACJ, and then after the ACJ, so I passed my ACJ as well, and I was going through the direct route. The minute I felt that the direct route is going to take so much time because of COVID, I immediately switched my focus to university route. I didn't start over because I got my good score. I got that right. I got my English IELTS exam as well, so I got that on the side. So I'm ready immediately to apply to universities. And this is my personal advice, that always keep your options open. You never know what happens. We did not expect COVID to happen. And it took so much time for people that graduated with me from ACJ to get to the skills part and finish. We almost finished at the same time. I finished the university at the same time with my classmates that finished the ACJ. So that's a little bit of my story. So what we did is, after finishing ADAT, as the doctors talked, and after getting score and everything's ready, now we want to explore the universities that we have in Canada. So I'm going to focus on the Canadian universities for now for foreign trained dentists, and then we can touch upon on the American process, because the American process is a little bit more, I don't want to say organized. It could be a little bit more organized than the Canadian, because you apply through one portal. So you get your requirements ready, and so you get your requirements ready, and then you apply through one portal. And so you can apply to multiple universities through one online portal, which is easier. The cycles are the same. It opens at the same time. It closes at the same time. And you have a lot of options. You have around 50 universities in the States. And for the people who's wondering, why am I online and I'm not the prep doctors, I'm talking from the States. So I recently moved to the States to practice here. So that's the American. American is very straightforward, and in the upcoming courses as well, we will talk more about the process. But let's focus on the Canadian universities. So for the Canadian universities, because we know we Canadians like sophisticated things. So every university has a specific due date and requirements. And in order for me to tackle all these universities, we need a roadmap, or we need a checklist. And that's what we did. As prep doctors, we built a roadmap for each universities, how to tackle each university, starting from application process, how many seats I'm expecting, what are the requirements, does it require now ADAT and AFK. Back in when I applied, there was no ADAT needed, so the process was more straightforward. Now we have multiple options. Does not mean that's a disadvantage. As Dr. Marwan again mentioned, that this could be an opening for a new opportunity. If you, I know a couple of friends that used all their attempts in AFK and they could not go back again to get a higher score in AFK. So this could be a new start from the for them to start with the ADAT and apply to the universities that accept the ADAT. So applications for each universities and the requirements, and then we go now to the interview process. So the interview process is also different for each university. There's some universities that take multiple mini interviews.
Dr. Choaukat, I just want to, so you're talking about the process and the interviews. I just want to highlight back in the days, and you participated in one of these courses, we used to have individual courses for each university. So we had like a University of Toronto prep course, University of Western Ontario, and so forth. But the last time we had a meeting, you came up with this great idea that we have to develop something as a part one, which is a fundamental course that introduces all the universities and at the same time teaches people the fundamental of interview. As I mentioned, it is part of every university admission process, so people need to actually have that background. So that part one, the earlier people get introduced to, the more prepared they will be. And that's what I wanted to ask you is, in that course that you guys with the prep doctors will be teaching the interview and the admission course, if you can talk a little bit about what to expect when people actually sign up for something like that.
Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you for this question. This is actually a good question. So we built a course. It is going to be around September 25, 26, and 28. It's going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And the main question that we received is this will cover each university or specific universities? And the answer is this is only part one of the courses that we built. Part one meaning that it's going to cover the basic fundamental knowledge for interview process. Now, interview is a build-up experience. There is some facts and knowledge we need to have, but it needs more training to how to tackle each topic questions, because we have different topic questions. We have role play, we have situation questions, we have the MMI is a different type of questions as well, for specifically for McGill University. So in order for the applicant to absorb this kind of information, and because they send the invitation in a very short amount of time, universities usually give you about 10 to 21 days before the interview, and then they send you this application. And then the minute you get this invitation, you feel the time is running so fast and you're not going to be able to get prepared as is. The first week you are happy that you received the invitation, you're going, celebrating with your family and everything, but actually the time is running very fast and you cannot prepare enough. So what we did is we built the course ahead of time. The start of a cycle, most of the universities start, let's say, October. So we had a course, or we will build a course, which is going to have to happen in September as basic. 3 days will get you familiar with all the topic questions. What are the expectations in the interview process? How would you tackle each topic question? How would you prepare until the day of the interview? So the minute you receive any invitation from a university, then now it comes another course, which is part two, which is university specific. And by that time, now you can revise the knowledge that we had and tackle specific university with the topic question they have, in addition to 1 or 2 mocks.
So to recap on this, let's say I am a candidate who's in the AFK or has completed the AFK, and I want to keep my options open. So the recommendation is, okay, I explored the ADAT, I applied for the ADAT, and then the second step, I have to start to apply to universities. So and this is a question to you, Dr. Choaukat. So if I haven't applied yet to universities, so my question to you is, why shouldn't I wait until I apply to universities? I know you touched upon the experience, but what's the importance of taking this course ahead of time? If I want to, let's say, go through the direct route, and I will keep this till later on.
Yes, okay. Yes, I can answer this question. Main reason is that, so let's say people now, just correct me if I'm wrong, people now are taking the AFK, or they already started with the direct route? Like, as of now, they took the AFK?
We actually have two groups of people. We have people who already finished the AFK, and I believe these people, they have been asking about the interview because they are in the process of applying. They've taken the AFK, they've taken the ADAT bridge course, and they already appeared for their ADAT. They have their scores ready. So those people, yes, of course, they're asking about this kind of service. But if someone who's already have not appeared for the AFK yet, do you think it's a good idea for them to start this early? Because, like, let's say someone who's in the AFK process right now, they're going to write the exam in Feb. And if they write the exam in Feb, they will be doing the ADAT in March and April. So are there going to be multiple cycles of this exam that they can catch on later on? Because as you mentioned, September, and I believe September will be a good date for people who are planning to, they've already had their papers and everything ready for this year. But someone who's now in the process of studying for AFK and going for the AFK exam in Feb, do you think the September will be beneficial, or are there going to be more cycles of this course later on that they can catch on to?
Yes, great question. Yes, so there will be different cycles of this course, and we will have this course running throughout the year. So we are planning also to have another cycle of this course January. So every couple of months, or every close, let's say, dates for university due dates and interview, we will have another course covers the basic fundamentals of the interview. So the reason I asked for the people who are appeared for the AFK last cycle or the ADAT is, if they apply to University of Toronto and McGill, this would be a beneficial course for them. University of Toronto and McGill, usually they send the invitation in around September, end of September, and then interviews takes place in October. So this, for these candidates, this would be ideal. Now, for the candidates who are still in the process for the AFK, we are going to have multiple courses that covers the basic fundamental, in addition to part 2, of course.
Thank you, Dr. Choaukat. So just to put a summary on this, if someone is a candidate in the AFK, what I believe is the best route they approach is have a backup of ADAT. At the same time, get familiar with the application process and the interview process so that you're ready. And Dr. Choaukat kept pointing to part 1 and part 2. And part 1 is just the fundamental. It's just to get them started, to understand what each university requires, to understand the different type of questions they're going to get in each university, how to tackle it, what should they do in the meanwhile to prepare for that. And once they get the invitation, there will be a part 2 dedicated to that university. And the part 2 is going to be either an interview alone, because some universities like University of Toronto, it's just mainly an interview, or it's going to be an interview plus a bench exam preparation, because some universities, they also have the bench exam. So the question I have for you now, I'm going to address it to Rafik, which is, in terms of, we talked about the bridging course and we talked about the interview course, and we have a great team here. We have Dr. Akashat, he's an expert in ADAT, been doing it for a long period of time. Dr. Choaukat, he's the university expert. I think he just have one of his hobbies is to apply to universities and just go for fun to do the interview and get accepted and then turn them down. You know, that's that's what he likes to do. So having these two teams working in collaboration, and what does Prep Doctor have to offer as packages for people who are interested in something like that?
Yes, so this is actually very important. We did receive a lot of questions, and we are receiving a lot of questions regarding this. Is Prep Doctors offering a roadmap, I believe, for this route? So yes, just to answer this question, we are offering a roadmap for this. So we joined the ADAT training program with the university Part 1 course, and until September 15th you can sign up for this package and you actually get a discount, an early bird discount. So what we joined is you start the ADAT training program and you'll start the university training program on September 25, and it'll be bundled up for a special price.
But let me ask you a question. Let's say someone who wants to get the roadmap of the university route and they want to get the bundle discount, but they don't want to actually appear for the interview this soon because they're in the AFK phase.
Yes.
Can they still get the bundle package, do the ADAT, and then do the interview in the university when they are ready for that?
That's a good question. So Dr. Marwan, just to reiterate, is asking, can somebody take the ADAT now but postpone the university component to a later date? Yes, of course you can. You can bundle now, secure your package, and then once you're ready for the interview component, you can start that component later on. So the package is for our ADAT course, as Dr. Akashat said, first week of November our ADAT course will start. And
it finishes in the second week of December.
Second week of December.
The mocks will be conducted in the month of February after your AFK exams.
After your AFK exams.
And then the second cycle, that would begin after the AFK course, obviously. So once like the Feb AFK students have appeared for the exam, that is when the next cycle of ADAT kicks in.
Yes, and just talk about a little bit about the pricing of our courses, and so thank you for the duration. So the ADAT course is $1,500, and the Part 1 interview course is $950.
And both of these are online, by the way.
Yes, both courses are online. You can do it from anywhere, and also as Dr. Akashat illustrated earlier, it's done actually during
in the evening. Yeah.
So if you are working or you're doing a job, then you can actually attend these courses. And all for attendees today that joined us, they'll be receiving an email about the roadmap to university, ADAT, and interview training. It's for, instead of $2,450, there's a special promotion going on for $2,200 until September 15th. You'll be able to receive a link with a breakdown with the roadmap to the university route, and we look forward to having all of our attendees in the training program here.
Thank you, Rafik. I do have a question, however. So we did have participants who already took the ADAT course with us in the first cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So are they also qualifying to avail the benefits of this roadmap? Like, do we have something in place where we can club up those people with the new pricing?
Yes. So this was actually my second question, is that I already took ADAT.
Okay.
Is there anything that I can avail, any special promotion? Of course, if you are a Prep Doctor student, you already know that we take care of you, we have your back. You already did Part 1 before we had this roadmap, so if you want to Part 2, then there's a special promotion going on also until September 15th to sign up for it, and it's around $150 discount.
Oh, wonderful. So that means we are not leaving anyone who has been associated with us ever at any point of time.
No. So this is also important, Dr. Akashat. What if you are not a Prep Doctor student? What if you haven't taken...
That was supposed to be my next question. I was going to throw that. You throw that.
Actually, I'll comment on this.
Can you walk us through it a little bit?
Yeah, because some people actually, and this is people who don't want to explore the direct route, which I strongly recommend that you keep all options open. But we do get some candidates said, no, I only want the university route, and I don't want to go through the direct route. Well, the clinical, because the ADAT is a bridging course, the clinical sciences are taught through AFK.
Yes.
So you have one of two options. Either you have to join the AFK course, and if you're in the vicinity and you can attend on site, this will be the best type of experience you're gonna get, or at one of our campuses. But for people who have no access to Prep Doctors, let's say they're out of the country or they're in areas where they cannot attend on site, we do have an AFK Crash Course. So the AFK Crash Course is gonna cover the clinical sciences, and you join it with the bridging course of ADAT in order to complete the picture for the ADAT course.
Okay, and this way you'll be covered. So we do have an AFK Crash Course that is done completely online. that you can do it from anywhere in the world actually.
Yes.
And then you can join the ADAT course, which is also done online, and this will be fully equipped to tackle this process.
Yeah, and a very strong recommendation based on like 2 points that we earlier discussed during this conversation. One was sooner the better, and second was what Dr. Choaukat said, that universities generally give you time frame between anywhere between 10 to 21 days between the invitation and your interview.
Yeah.
So as he mentioned, like that the first week you're celebrating and the last week you're under stress. So technically speaking, you're left with only hardly a week.
1 week.
Right? And the interview and speaking in front of a camera or in front of someone, like when there's a panel evaluating your performance, participants tend to get stressed.
Yeah.
And this is something that has to be developed eventually. You won't get it in a snap overnight.
Just to comment on what Dr. Akashat said, by the way, when we do these courses, because I do participate mock exams, people find it difficult because they think, okay, teach me how to do an interview. So it's like if someone comes and tells you, teach me how to drive a car in 2 weeks, and they've never drove a car. Driving a car, like the written exam, okay, you can teach them how to do the multiple choice, but to actually drive, that's experience. You have to practice, and then you get better at it. Same thing with the communication. Communication doesn't come from just 2 weeks and you become good in communication. Communication is continuous practice at ease. So that's why if you know beforehand what you need to practice and you do a little bit every week, then you are going to get better at it. Similarly, actually, when we applied comprehension is practice, by the way. How fast you can read and understand the passage is practice. The more you read, the better you get at it. So you can do it through 2 weeks of training.
So it's good to have that skill, acquire it, and then develop it and become more familiar.
I mean, for me, like if I was a participant, it would make more sense if I'm doing things at my ease, at my own pace, in my own way of learning. And that I can do, like I can be natural myself only when I'm not under stress.
Awesome. Yes, so I honestly don't see a reason why I shouldn't have all these tools and under my belt and be equipped to tackle this. Especially now that you have the time. If you still didn't apply it, now you have the time. I think now is the time to prepare for
this cycle. They're lucky because this is the good cycle. Usually we have trouble with people who take our Feb AFK course to kind of coordinate everything.
Yeah, because the August exam, the kind of dates that we have, the AFK dates for the August and the ADAT, it pretty much is like enclosed. It's a close call, so it's very you have a very narrow window available out there.
Exactly.
Yes. What if someone that wants to take the exams next year here? So just to illustrate again, I see a lot of questions. What if they take it next year? So again, you can start now.
Take which exam? The ADAT exam?
The ADAT exam and the university. No, the courses.
Okay, because the ADAT exam is only next year.
Yeah.
There's no ADAT exam this year, so it's only next year.
Yeah, so if you want to take the exams next year, you should start preparing for the courses November 5th. And take the university, have it under your belt.
For the ADAT exam, I do. So let's break it into 2 parts.
Okay.
The ADAT exam is gonna be starting in March. You will be doing the AFK exam in Feb. So that's when you are at the peak of your knowledge. Right when you do the AFK exam. So, and you've already covered the material for ADAT. Now, of course, when you cover the material for the ADAT, you're doing it on the side, but your primary focus is AFK. Now, when you hit the AFK, when you finish the AFK exam, the actual NDEB exam, now you're gonna start to revise the AFK so that you don't lose it, and you're gonna put the focus now again on the ADAT, and there will be exams happening at that time, so that you can do it in March or April. If someone says, no, actually I want to finish the AFK and then take the course of ADAT, that's another possibility. They can do something like that, but what's going to be the problem is they're going to have to wait a longer period after their AFK, so there's going to have to be more revision of
There's another
AFK.
advantage, Dr. Marwan, that I would like to bring to everyone's attention. So supposingly if someone has taken the ADAT in the month of March, the mid of March, and for some reasons, they could not score that well, they need to wait a 45 period time window, 45 days, time period should be between the first and the second attempt. So even though if they appear on 15th of March, still they can take the next exam by end of April or 15th of May, improve the score, and still have their hopes for the cycles of McGill and Toronto Open.
Yeah.
So that's another advantage of preparing.
What about the other universities' timelines?
The University of Saskatchewan this year, what they did was they accepted all the ADAT scores, which for the test being conducted from 1st till 10th of March.
Okay.
So they give a very narrow window, but then again, like, we see that Manitoba has announced that they would be accepting the ADAT in coming cycles. Alberta has announced.
But
So,
most likely, if they want to catch next year, then they have to do it in the March.
yes,
Pretty much,
becau-
like
yes,
to catch
yes,
all the
because they have
universities,
to,
it
yes,
has to be
exactly,
March.
because they need to have their scores ready.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I have one more question here. Should our NDB profile be accepted for the ADAT exam?
No.
No.
So your ADAT is completely conducted by the American Dental Association. It's a ADA, a body that is conducting it. So they have a different profile, and they do not consider your NDB profile anyways.
Awesome. I have
By the way, this is, I think people who are asking this question are those who are waiting for NDB to approve them.
yes.
Yeah, and yeah, you'll be surprised if you actually submit your documents to the ADAT. Most likely, you're gonna get the ADAT way before the.
You would appear for the exam, and the other evaluation is still under process. Maybe.
Yes. One last question here. Can you please comment more about phase 2, and is it a requirement to take phase 1 of the university training course that we offer?
Dr. Marwan.
Yeah,
Dr. Marwan,
so phase 1 is pretty much
Part
laying
one,
the, or part 1. As we mentioned, we are making this roadmap, and we want people to adhere to it. Part 1 is to make phase 2 easy for people and for us, because if someone already has the foundation, then phase 2 becomes more focusing on the type of questions and the interview that the university has. Plus, if a university requires a bench exam, they're going to be dedicating a lot of time to the bench exam, so that's not the time to actually practice the communication now.
interview skills.
They have
Okay.
to practice in the labs.
The
Yes,
time
this is
gets
very
divided.
important point,
Time
yes.
gets divided.
Gets
as
divided.
well.
So their focus is going to be more on practical and fine tuning. That's why I don't recommend, and that's one of the things that we learned from the previous where we used to do these courses, because I used to teach University of Toronto admission, like interview course, for example, which is great because it's just an interview course. But when you come to Manitoba and Western and all of those, people are not focusing on the interview because there is a bench exam that is associated with these universities. And the interview ends up eliminating a lot of people. Like eventually, so the way it goes, they have a bench exam and then it's concluded by an interview. So people they
They
get
perform-
called to the interview,
Yeah.
and then unfortunately they get eliminated at the interview phase. Why? Because they didn't have time to practice for the interview, they were practicing for both. So that's why Dr. Choaukat actually addressed this problem. He said part 1 should be introduced as soon as possible. People need to know the foundation, they need to have the time to study and prepare, they need to know what universities require before they actually get called for the university. And he's the best one to comment on that because he's been through that himself. And if he has anything else to add, Dr. Choaukat, feel free to.
Yes. I would just like to add as well that we also can have a consultation regarding the application. So if you're ever confused about some of the documents or anything, you can contact prep doctors as well for guidance and consultation. And as a summary, as Dr. Marwan said again, phase 1 is something very important to get prepared for phase 2. We don't want to wait for the interview or the invitation to actually do action. We need to get prepared ahead of time. So by the time we get the interview, at least we have 70% of the knowledge. Then the 30% is dedicated for the bench exam or fine-tuning the questions and the practice and the mocks for this university that invited you for the interview or the admission process.
Thank you, Dr. Choaukat.
Awesome. And do we offer, Dr. Choaukat, one last question. Do we offer counseling for each university, like university-specific counseling for one at part 2?
Yes, we can have that as well. So even before the application or in phase 2, so the minute that you're, because this is actually a very important aspect. For example, let me give you guys an example. Some universities do not ask for a resume. So a lot of questions are asked. So do I need to submit a resume or not? Now, this is why the consultation is very important, because it gets confusing. Do I need to submit more papers or not? And the simple answer for me, if they asked for it, then they need it. If they did not ask for it, then most probably it wouldn't add anything It might even add harm to the application, not good. So if you're confused about some documents that you want to apply before even phase 1 or phase 2, contact Prep Doctor's office and we'll guide you through it. If you have confusion after phase 1 and you're applying to different universities after, also contact us and we can guide you through this as well.
So,
And also, one more thing is some people they ask about the ADAT application itself. Like that you said how you have to get all of these papers
Yes.
verified. So the question is to Rafik. So you talked about the roadmap and the bundle. So if when people sign up, is there a system in place in Prep Doctors to guide people on also how to apply and how to actually go through that verification?
yes, with the ADA, to get your ECE evaluation. So there are actually two things that we're doing at Prep Doctors. There will be a detailed video step by step that will be released on all of our platforms to how to apply to the ADA, what to do. Similar to a service that we do with the NDEB consultation, but won't be one-on-one. There'll be a walkthrough detailed process video of how to apply to the American Dental Association, how to get
Actually,
your
great.
dent pen, your ECE, all that stuff. So that's one. And we're also there's also going to be what I was talking about. So how to apply for the ADA one, and also part of the university part 1 is we walk you through what each university will require and what papers you need to
So
apply
that's
for
part
them.
of the course. And
As
the
part
course.
of the course for part 1, it's very important to know that for each university, part 1 will cover in detail what each university will require for you, what you need to apply, what documents you need to provide, and all that stuff. Back to Dr. Choukat's point is that they walk you through the whole detail of every university, at least the 10 major Canadian.
Yeah, which is also important because I know some universities require English, right, Dr. Choaukat? So that's something that they have to also have in place.
And we also have during the course as well. So the 3 days, we also talk about the American universities. So for the candidates that are willing to open up their backup options, we will discuss. We also have a requirement list and a roadmap for the American universities. We mostly will cover, if not all, 95% of the American universities that accept foreign trained dentists. So that as well will be addressed in the course, and we'll walk you through it also step by step.
And Dr. Choaukat or maybe Dr. Marwan can shed light on this. Do we need IELTS exam or any form of English exam as a part of the interview of university admission?
Yes. So mostly, so this is actually something a little bit confusing. If you're applying for both American and Canadian universities, now most American universities they accept TOEFL. Usually Canadian universities accept IELTS and TOEFL. So let's say a candidate is planning to apply for the States and Canada, then I would advise to look into the TOEFL first and make sure you secure that. Now, if you are, the candidates that are willing only to apply to Canada, then you can choose either or. And there's a lot of options as well. As I said, each university have multiple requirements, which we will go through, and each university has multiple English exams that you can take. So TOEFL, IELTS, and other type of exams as well. And then some of the universities, they require a specific exam, for example, Alberta, like a speaking proficiency test and things like that. So yeah, so different options. But if you are looking into applying for both, so I think TOEFL would be the best thing to take.
This is why I just wanna to conclude, because I know there's some people who have to start the AFK. So just to conclude, this is why it's important to know things way ahead of time, because going through the university route is not just about ADAT. It's not just about an interview. It's about knowing what each university wants and also planning it out. Like, when are you going to be studying for the English? When are you going to be appearing for TOEFL? When are you going to be doing the bench? And this is why if you postpone all of this until you get invited or right when you start the application, you're going to be crunched in time.
Yes.
So our recommendation would be to be as early as possible in order to secure that route for yourself.
Yes, I'm glad. Thanks to Dr. Marwan, our Chief Learning Officer, Dr. Akashat and Dr. Choaukat, for developing such a course that covers everything from the get-go, from the start, whether it's the English examination or the consultation for the university or the application process. We, as prep doctors, methodology, we like to equip our candidates to the fullest and put all the tools that they need under their belt so they'll be able to tackle this journey.
So as they say, Rafik, like, you should send a soldier to a war only when he is fully equipped. And these exams, they are no less than war. So it's like it's a do or die situation for any foreign trained dentist who has the credentials, like they have the masters and specialization back home.
Mm-hmm.
But over here in North America, it's zero. They have to start from scratch. So it's no less than a war.
Yes.
Sustaining the family and going through these exams, it is difficult. So planning would always play a key role.
Awesome. All right, I believe this concludes the session for today. Dr. Choaukat, thank you for joining us all the way from the States. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you guys virtually. Although I hope that I can be next to you guys now, but very, very soon, hopefully.
Of course, Dr. Akashat and Dr. Marwan, thank you so much for joining me today. And just to summarize for our attendees, you'll be receiving an email with a special bundle for the roadmap to universities. And we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.